Just before we get into today's video, I just wanted to let you guys know that I've recently been making some channel changes. So some videos on my channel will sort of blink out of existence, and some will be post-edited, as I'm calling it. I've written a full sort of statement on this matter, which on my Google Plus page, which I've pinned it to my Google Plus page to make it a bit easier to find. So if you guys are wondering what's happening to my channel, I'll leave a link to my Google Plus page in the description so you can read up or read the post which details about my channel changes. But either way, on to today's video. Now, if you're a Doctor Who book collector, it is most likely that you have at least one signed Doctor Who book or a multitude of signed books in various forms, from whatever that would be, deluxe books, just a signed book, whatever. And for me personally, signed Doctor Who books are extremely important in my perspective. Doctor Who books are the absolute best format of Doctor Who in my opinion. Very close call between them and the original TV's episodes, but I personally think I might prefer the books. I'm not sure, that's probably pretty controversial, but as the TV episodes are well loved. But either way, I'm getting sidetracked. Doctor Who books that are signed are extremely important in my opinion, as it is a piece of history you are essentially getting engraved in the book. From somebody who was involved in the creation of the book or in some shape or form. So just Doctor Who books in general are really important in my personal opinion, signed ones. And it is important for any Doctor Who book collector to have them in my personal opinion. And that's what I'm going to be showing you today, my collection of signed Doctor Who books. I'm a person that has quite a large collection of Doctor Who books. I have read and reviewed a great multitude of them, and I do have a nice little selection of signed Doctor Who books, and that is what I'm going to be showing you today. We're going to start off with Target novelisations, and then we're going to go into the original full-length novels, charity novels, short story compilation, Telos novellas. Then from the Telos novellas we will go into the Telos Deluxe books, which will then transition into the finale of this video, the non-fiction section. I have a total of about 31 Doctor Who books that are signed in some shape or form. And as I said, it just means a lot to me to have what is probably my favourite medium of Doctor Who signed in some shape or form. And some of these I'm going to show you are the rarest things in my, some of the rarest things in my collection, and some of the most unique, shall we say. As I said, I'm going to start off with Target novelisations. The first one of which I'm going to be showing, and the first signed book for today's video, is this. This is a 1970s Target paperback edition of Doctor Who and the 10th Planet, which is hand signed on the interior by Anneke Wills, as you can clearly see here. At the point of buying this, I had already had the 2012, 2011, 2010 reprint of this Target novelisation, but I somehow managed to get this for £4 off of eBay, and I thought, you know what, nice collection, nice addition to the collection. I really like 60s era Doctor Who. It's my favourite out of the show, and it's nice to have this in the collection, a nice little signed book for my ever-growing 1960s era collection. Lovely little thing to have. What's even lovelier are these next two books, and they're going to be showing them at the same time, as they have very similar things to them, both being that the same people signed these ones. We have a 2016 reprint of the Web of Fear, or it might have been a 2017 one, 2017, 2016, something around there, and the 2010, 2011, 2012 reprint of the Loch Ness Monster, both of which are signed by the author, Terrance Dicks, and the cover illustrator, Chris Achilleos, who I actually did research for in a college project, I believe a couple of years ago, before I started to leave art college. But either ways, I'm getting distracted. These are really nice things to have in the collection, and are really nice things to have in the collection, as these are two quite popular Target Doctor Who books, I think, actually, hand signed by two of the figureheads of the world of the Target books. I would have said personally, you know, Chris Achilleos did many of the wonderful covers that we know and love today, like the one of the Auton Invasion. So it's, and Terrance Dicks wrote, I think, around 50 Target books, I don't quite know. But yeah, it's lovely to have two Doctor Who Target books signed by two of the figureheads of the Target book world and range, and these are just lovely little things to have. I picked both of these up off of eBay for 15 quid each, I do believe. Very nice to have. One thing I forgot to record in that sort of signed Target section was this other thing that I managed to obtain from Dimensions 2016. Basically, there was this really rare guest and obscure guest at Dimensions 2016 by the name of Derek Martin, and he basically cameoed in a few classic Doctor Who stories, and he's a very rare and obscure Doctor Who actor. So I thought, since I had a free autograph from him on my ticket package, I might as well try and get something signed for him. So at one of the stalls, I purchased this Target novelisation paperback of the Ambassadors of Death, which is one I didn't have at the point of buying it. And as you'd expect, yes, I did get it signed by Derek Martin, who cameoed in this story, who I believe played a policeman in the original TV story. But yeah, I just sort of acted on instincts, knew Derek Martin was quite a rare guest, so I decided to take the opportunity by buying this from one of the Dimension stores and getting it signed by him. But yeah, there's that, a really nice Target novelisation paperback of the Ambassadors of Death, signed by a really obscure and rare guest. Next we have a Celestial Toymaker mint condition non-X library W.H. Allen hardcover. Well, near mint, there's a bit of a dent to the top of it at the top there. Bit of a ding rather. Pages are crystal white, it's non-X library, and it is also signed by Peter Purves, which I got signed by him at Dimensions 2016. Yeah, really lovely thing to have in my collection. Celestial Toymaker is quite an interesting Doctor Who story itself. I personally am not much of a fan of the TV story originally, even though I do admire its ambitions and its unique quality to it, I would have said. But for me, the Target novelisation written by Gary Davis and Alison Dingeman is infinitely superior. I think this is just an absolutely incredible Target novelisation, and is one of the best Target novelisations I've ever read, and it is really nice to have a Non-X Library hardback from the Wasteland season of Hartnell, as it were. And I've recently been able to acquire a few more 1960s Non-X Library Target hardbacks, but it will be a while before you guys actually find out what those are, as I'll be featuring them in a video which won't be uploaded for quite a while. Maybe not until next year, I'm not quite sure. But there we go, there was a very nice Non-X Library Direct Allen hardback of the Celestial Toymaker, signed by Peter Purves. This next one here has quite a big story to it, and this is one of the rarest things in my collection. This book itself comes in this little protective jacket, which I always keep it in, and these days I just sort of seem to keep it in the dust jacket, as it were, as this is a very fragile Doctor Who book, so this might be the very last time I will take it out of the dust jacket and show it to you guys on camera, as this is a really old and fragile Doctor Who book. What this is a Doctor Who Tomb of the Cybermen W.H. Allen hardcover, hand signed by the late great Deborah Watling, Fraser Hines, and the person who did the cover illustration, Jeff Cummins, which is easily one of the absolute rarest things to have in my collection. As you can see, the book itself is very fragile. As you can see, the sort of very front pages have been ripped out, leaving this sort of cardboard brown slip of the spine there, and the pages are all intact. They are there, but I am really scared that this is going to come away from the binding one day, so I don't really take it out of this sleeve that I have it in too much. Even the book itself has got some wear on it. As you can see, there's like a tape mark there or something like that. But yeah, you're probably thinking, how on earth did you manage to accumulate something so rare with regards to one of the best loved 60s era Doctor Who stories? This was the very first Target hardback I ever purchased from my collection. I bought this book in the condition that it is, hand signed only by Deborah Watling, back in late 2015, I want to say, for £20. And then later on, next year, at the end of next year, at Dimensions 2016, I got it hand signed by Fraser Hines and Jeff Cummins. And that's the sort of basic story behind it, really. It's one of the absolute rarest things in my collection by far. It's really, really amazing to have, and if I was ever to part with this, I'm not quite sure if I'd be able to put a figure on how much I would be willing to part with this thing for, because obviously Deborah Watling is now unfortunately dead, and it's probably very hard, maybe near enough impossible, to come across another specimen of the Tomb of the Cybermen hardback like this. But yeah, I am absolutely over the moon to have this rare treasure in my collection, and it is just an absolutely wonderful thing to have in my collection. For the last Target hardback and main Target book in this video, we have one of the most oddest, bizarrest and unique things in my collection. Like with my Celestial Toymaker hardback, this once again is a Non-X Library hardback, this time on The Awakening. I picked this up for only £16, which at the time was a good price for the book. That was actually, I believe, under the average at the time that I picked up the book on Amazon. I believe it was around 16 quid on Amazon at the same time. And believe it or not, this thing, not only is it Non-X Library, but it's signed by a total of 11 different people. Shell E.J. Wells, if I'm pronouncing her at the top left there right, Colin Howard, who played a Cyberman, David Banks, who also played a Cyberman, Gary Russell, editor of Doctor Who magazine, as he's put DWM there, the late producer of 1980s Doctor Who, John Nathan Turner, Terrance Dicks once again up there, Peter Halliday, who played various people in Doctor Who, such as Packer from The Invasion, and the priest from Remembrance of the Daleks, and I believe somebody from the Silurians, Peter Miles, who recently passed away, who's famous for playing Nyder in Genesis of the Daleks. And we also have Jean Levine, who played Benton, John Scott Martin, who played a Dalek, and a cyber leader actor, Brian Clegg. It's a really odd amalgamation of autographs to have on a book like this, and they are all dedicated, and it is in a sense a little clusterfuckery in terms of the mixing of errors in terms of the autographs on this Doctor Who book, but it is still a really amazing thing to have in the collection. It's a really interesting sort of talking point and thing for my collection, I would have said personally. But yeah, and I only got it for 16 quid as well, and it's non-ex library. Can't really argue with that. It's, despite how old it is, the price that I got it for and the fact that it's non-ex library is pretty amazing. And this page in particular as well is pretty incredible. You've got Gary Russell on the top left, John Nathan Turner, Terrance Dicks, Peter Halliday, Peter Miles. This is just a really odd and incredible thing for the collection, I would have said. We now move on to original fiction books, novels published by the BBC and charity novels. Up next we have a 12th Doctor book, Diamond Dogs. This is a sort of Forbidden Planet signed one, which I've still got the receipt for in here, as you can see there. Got this on holiday at the Forbidden Planet in Newcastle, so there's a little bit of a memory in there, and then there's a signature by Mike Tucker there. I haven't read Diamond Dogs yet, and I've heard it's got a lot of references to the legendary David Bowie. Now I'm probably going to get a lot of controversy here, but personally David Bowie is not really my kind of music. I like some of his songs, such as Space Oddity I think is really good, and Heroes is really good, but in general I don't really think he is my kind of type of music. I personally prefer other things in terms of music, and I think because of that I may or may not like this Doctor Who book, as I have heard that there is a lot of references to David Bowie in this Doctor Who book. But yeah, there is that, a Forbidden Planet signed Diamond Dogs. I got this from the Forbidden Planet in Newcastle, England, for 6 quid, as it was reduced, and the same applies to the next book that I will show you, The Shining Man, which I got on the exact same day as Diamond Dogs, also for 6 quid from the same Forbidden Planet. Yeah, I have reviewed this Doctor Who book, massively disappointing. One of the worst Doctor Who books I have ever read in my personal opinion. Pure and utter shit in my opinion, and I was really looking forward to it. It's by Cavan Scott, one half of the brain of the project series from Big Finish, and it took what was an interesting premise set in the internet age, but sort of just fucks around with it and just made it really, really silly at the end of the day, with grating characters and a really unpleasant and unsatisfactory conclusion and explanation to the Shining Men. But yeah, I don't really know what more to say on it than that. Just avoid this book, it's absolutely terrible. One of the worst Doctor Who books I've ever read, 2 out of 10. Then we have a similar thing here as my Web of Fear and Loch Ness Monster paperbacks. We have 2 past Doctor Adventure books, Business Unusual and Spiral Scratch, both of which are hand signed by the author Gary Russell, as you can see here. I believe I purchased Business Unusual for around £8, hand signed by Gary Russell, and I bought this copy of Spiral Scratch for I believe around 15, and the seller didn't state that this was a signed copy, so I just got a signed copy by surprise, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I have read and reviewed Spiral Scratch by Gary Russell. Really good, albeit complicated book, and I have recently read Business Unusual, also by Gary Russell. Won't say my thoughts on it just yet, as that is left to a review which I will be uploading soon, one of my next reviews I want to say. Then we have quite an important Doctor Who book, in my personal opinion, or to me personally. We have a history collection reprint of Shadow in the Glass, hand signed by Colin Baker. And the reason why this is so important to me is that this is the very first Doctor Who book I ever got hand signed. First time I ever bought a Doctor Who book up to somebody to get it signed by them, to my memory. I'm pretty sure that is the case. But yeah, I purchased this for I believe £8 in a Waterstones, and then Belfast Comic Con 2015, I want to say, I got it hand signed by Colin Baker, which is the same time I met Peter Purvis for the first time. But yeah, Shadow in the Glass, fantastic Doctor Who book, magnificent 6th Doctor story. Really enjoyed this one, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out already. Then we also have the Roundhead History Collection, which is hand signed by Fraser Hines. Got this signed by Fraser at 2016 Belfast Comic Con, I do believe, which was the first time I met him. But yeah, also a really good Doctor Who book, a bit of an underrated one in my opinion. I personally really do like the Roundheads quite a bit. I think it's a really fun and great historical read. Similar thing with my Shadow in the Glass reprint. I bought this at the same time as the History Collection reprints of The Witch Hunters, Human Nature and The English Way of Death off of Amazon at the same time from the same seller, which came to around £25 I think, something like that, and then I spent a further 10 to get signed by Fraser at Belfast Comic Con. So yeah, there is that, absolutely fantastic thing to have. Then we have one of the rarest things in my collection by far and beyond. This is a copy of Times Champion, hand signed by Colin Baker and John Levine. This is quite a big story behind it. Basically, Times Champion was originally printed by, or published by, the British Heart Foundation all the way back in 2008, 2009 I think, somewhere around that sort of time span, 2008, there we go, by the British Heart Foundation. However, copies sold out very quickly. Retarded people bought multiple copies and flung them on eBay for extortionately higher prices, and a lot of fans were just desiring this Doctor Who book and sort of demanded that David J. Howe of Telos Publishing was to do a reprint of this Doctor Who book, and so he did. And how I ended up getting this was that the second print run of Times Champion David J. Howe did had an overstock of 8 copies that didn't sell. he had those 8 copies at Dimensions 2016 on one stall for 20 quid a piece. I bought a copy, got it hand signed by Colin Baker at Dimensions, and for free actually, because it was part of my ticket package back then. And then I spent a further 10 to get it signed by John Levine in Belfast Comic Con 2017. But yeah, read and reviewed this Doctor Who book. It's absolutely mad. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I don't really know. It's really unpredictable if you like this thing or not. It's a really odd and bizarre Doctor Who book, and quite a significant bit of history to be had with Doctor Who books, I would have said personally. Then we have Campaign. This is a First Doctor charity novel, self-published by Jim Mortimore, who it is signed by. I believe I picked this up for around 25 quid during the same month that I picked up Times Champion, so end of October 2016. But yeah, really lucky to have this in the collection. I would like to read and review it someday. Haven't even read it yet, but maybe I'll do that one day. It seems like a really mad Doctor Who book, and I am kind of dreading it a little, as it is a really bizarrely structured Doctor Who book. Like, what the fuck is this at the back? Why are we doing like snakes and ladders type of crap here? Why is it like a poem here? Why is there, if I could get to it, a fucking comic book at the end of it? Why is there whatever the hell that is? Looks like something out of fucking Lord of the Rings. This just looks like an absolutely insane Doctor Who book, and I really am kind of terrified, more than dreading, reading this Doctor Who book. I really don't know what to expect from this, other than it's just going to be batshit crazy.